In a rush to pick up my daughter from school, I had an unfortunate car accident back home. My wife, without saying a word, she slapped me directly. "What are you busy with all day?" she said angrily. "Even Christopher, an outsider, is more devoted to your daughter than you are." At this time, I realized that Christopher, my wife's first love, was there. "Mom, I want Uncle Christopher to be my dad. Is that okay?" my daughter asked in her baby voice. I looked down at my hands covered in dried-up blood. Suddenly, I felt the faith I had been holding on to disappear. In order to give my wife and Emily a good life, I worked 3 jobs by myself, busy as hell. On the way to deliver a takeaway, a car suddenly ran out and hit me. As a result, I still didn't get Emily on time. She said angrily, "What's wrong with you? I've been telling you every day when the kids get out of school. Why can't you remember?" Sophia was wearing a customized tight dress. And the latest LV high heels. She criticized me right away. "You can't even do such a simple thing. What else can you do?" She was holding Emily in one hand and Christopher in the other, ready to leave. I felt bad, but I forced myself to smile and say to Emily, "I'm sorry. Dad's late, I'm sorry." I reached out to touch her head. Instead, she just swatted it away with her hand. "Go away. I don't want you. You smell. I like Uncle Sophia to be my dad." I sniffed my own sweaty body. I put my hand back. He said, a little embarrassed, "Sorry, there's too much going on today. Dad will change when he gets back later. I don't like you. You stay away from me." I didn't expect Emily to push me away. Then she ran to Christopher and said, "Uncle Christopher, the school is having a parent-teacher conference next week. Can you come to attend?" Christopher smiled and picked up his daughter. He said, "Of course, my little princess." Emily wrapped her arms around Christopher's neck, said softly, "If only you were my daddy." The words sent an ache through my heart. Sophia sensed the embarrassment. She smiled coldly. "William, no wonder Emily can't see you. Look at yourself. You're both incompetent and poor. Your 1 month's salary, you can't even compare to the shoes Christopher bought for me during rush hour. There are people on the street. Someone saw the wound on my hand. They whispered, 'He's so pathetic. His hand is bleeding.' This man was dressed completely differently from the other 3. I wonder if he's begging." These words are not loud, but just loud enough for us to hear. I had a hard time in my heart. Even a passerby could tell that my hand was injured. But Sophia is my wife. How could she pretend not to see it? Was thinking. Sophia glanced at my blood-covered hand, then skimmed it. "You'd better go to the outpatient clinic first. Don't go to the hospital. It's too expensive there." Christopher bought tickets for the 5 o'clock movie. Emily and I are going to see it together. "Don't wait for us for dinner." "That's right. Emily has to pay her tuition the day after tomorrow. Don't forget to prepare." I stood still. The sweat on my palms made the wound hurt more. As a man, I shouldn't have felt the pain, but watching them leave holding hands like a family, I felt like my hand hurt like it was going to break. The pain tore at my heart. I dragged my tired body back home. Didn't go to the clinic Sophia mentioned to bandage the wound. I just simply treated the wound with the iodine vapors that I had prepared at home for their mother and daughter. Then put on the kitty Band-Aid that originally belonged to Emily. This kind of cute and cozy stuff. Put it on a big guy like me who's 5'8". It did look a bit out of place. I sat on the couch and thought for a while. Still couldn't hold back. Went downstairs to the convenience store to buy a pack of cigarettes. Since I married Sophia, I've never smoked again, because she doesn't like it. Now she went to dinner with her first love. Instead, it gave me a chance. I sighed, still dialed my boss's number, stammered a request for him to pay next month's salary in advance. Subsequently, I hesitated for a moment, made up my mind to borrow a sum of money on a lending app. By the time Sophia and Emily got home, it was already 11 o'clock at night. I walked up, smelled a strong odor of alcohol, asked, "You smoked? Who told you to smoke?" I had just picked up Sophia's bag. Suddenly, a booze-smelling slap hit me hard in the face. I didn't have time to dodge, staggered 2 steps, said, "Ah." I'd been ventilating for hours with the windows open and showered and brushed my teeth. "Is there still a smell?" I stood still. I didn't know what to do. I said, somewhat helplessly, "But, wife, Didn't we already agree when I'm not around, you can't drink outside? Sophia took off her high heels and threw them at me. The slender heel hit my head. Blood flowed down my forehead. You've got a lot of nerve. What I want to do? What do you care? Emily suddenly rushed from behind her and pounced on me. I instinctively tried to catch her. I didn't realize she was just trying to push me hard, and shouted, "Bad dad." Mom drank the wine because she was happy to see Christopher's dad. That's a very expensive red wine. You've never seen it in your life. Not to mention buying Mom a drink. She's small, standing in front of me with her waist crossed, with a more obvious contempt than usual on her face. I looked at this real daughter that I had raised since childhood, showing undisguised contempt for me, her own father, but calling out affectionately to that strange boy whom she had only seen a few times as Papa Christopher. My heart suddenly tightened. Couldn't help but say, "You fell in front of the school today. I ended up being laughed at by the other kids. You're such a dad. I really can't stand it." Said, she pulled the somewhat drunken Sophia past me and didn't forget to kick me. I quietly closed my eyes, trying to suppress that urge, just kept telling myself, this is my own decision. After all, my daughter is my own. She is still young. There's still a chance to correct her. So the next day, after I prepared a hearty and nutritious breakfast for both of them, I told them I was going to take them on a trip. They always wanted to go to the islands. Sophia was still having a headache from her hangover. She drank the tea I made to wake her up, while looking me up and down, smiling. "Yo, with the little money you earn, you can still take us on a trip to the island." I rubbed my hands nervously. Said, "Wife, I understand Christopher is your first love. He's been back for the past 2 days. His condition is quite a bit better than ours. You're a bit upset. I won't blame you." Her expression was a bit embarrassed, muttered in a small voice. "What's all this? It's okay. I understand. That's why I wanted to take you guys out for a walk. Emily hasn't been to the beach since she learned to swim. Let's go to the beach this time." When Emily heard that she was going to the beach, immediately, she was so happy that she danced around. She picked up my cell phone, started to pick out her favorite little swimsuit. The fresh air and beautiful scenery on the island makes the boredom in my heart lessen a lot. Sophia was lying under a parasol, leisurely applying sunscreen. Emily ran to the beach, excitedly shouting to go swimming. I was born not knowing how to swim, but Emily doesn't know who she inherited it from. Since she was a little girl, she's always loved the water. After sending her to a swimming interest class, she learned especially fast. I asked Sophia to play in the water with me, but she twisted her body, said she wanted to go to a nearby restaurant. There was no way. I had to take Emily to play in the shallow water, but Emily was obviously not happy. She wanted to swim in the deep water. I was worried about safety. I didn't do what she wanted. She started yelling again. "Bad dad." If Christopher's dad was there, he would have accompanied me. Her voice attracted a few tourists. "They have advised me, you guys are here for tourism too. It's rare to come out to play once. Just go along with the child's wish." "That's right. The waters are safe. There's a lifeguard over there. Don't worry. I don't want to disappoint my daughter at this point." I had to keep going. The water that was only up to my ankles, now it has risen to the calves and knees. I was not careful. Emily swam into deeper waters. I rushed to pull her, but she jokingly pushed me down and then rode on top of me. The water wasn't too deep, but after falling down, the water filled my mouth and nose. Emily continued to pull me deeper. "Emily, don't do that." I catch a moment of the waves ebb and flow and yell at her, but she still giggles. The sound comes from the water. It's as if it's pulling me into the abyss. "Bad daddy, you have a smell on you. Let me help you wash it." She saw me struggling. She poured water on me. "That's not right. You're not a good father. If something happens to you in the water, I'll be able to get Papa Christopher to take care of me." I felt her swimming toward me. I wanted to reach out and pull her back, but was worried I might accidentally hurt her. She suddenly sat on my neck, pressing down hard. I immediately felt breathless, as if drowned by the tide. In just a few dozen seconds, I felt like I was about to lose consciousness. The tourists around us thought we were playing around. After all, no one would think. An adult who couldn't swim would be dragged into the sea and drowned by his own daughter. I'm a 5'8" adult after all. Emily's physical strength is still no match for me. After a few minutes, she was physically exhausted. She had to swim to the shore. I finally stepped on the ground, stabilized my body, sitting in the water. The water was only up to my neck. Cold sweat mixed with seawater flowed down. Emily really wanted to drown me in the sea just now. I hurriedly climbed onto the shore. I wanted to find Sophia to talk about it, but I didn't see her on the shore. Emily and I kept a distance of a few meters, walked into the restaurant together, found Sophia and Christopher across from her. Christopher, Dad. Emily immediately changed her expression. Smiling happily, she jumped into Christopher's arms. Christopher gently touched Emily's face. Sophia, on the other hand, didn't look at me at all. Her gaze was full of laughter, keeping her eyes on the two people in front of her. Anyone who saw this scene would think it was a cozy family scene. If there wasn't a lost soul next to me, the situation might be better. As for why Christopher is here, I don't want to think about it anymore. I'm really tired. I quietly left the restaurant, hurry back to the hotel and pack my bags, take the nearest flight home. The house was dark when I arrived home. By the light outside, I saw that the house was in a mess. On the day of departure, I wanted to make more money, pulling goods outside all night. I was expecting Sophia to tidy up the house after she finished her stuff, would be able to tidy up the house a bit. But she obviously didn't. I was cleaning up the messy junk. Suddenly in the darkness, I heard the sound of a cell phone message. I followed the sound, found a cell phone under the nightstand on Sophia's side of the bed. I tried to enter Sophia's birthday. It quickly unlocked. I saw a chat log. It said, "Emily is actually your child. I only married William because he's honest. He was especially good to me. He never knew. Emily, whom he raised as his own daughter, is not actually his child." Christopher said a lot of sweet things to her later. My mind was a mess, thinking back to their mother-daughter behavior. Now there was only one thought: divorce. I dialed Sophia's number, but she didn't answer. After a while, only then did she call back. She asked in a casual tone, "What's going on? Let's get a divorce." She seemed to have heard something funny. "Divorce? How dare you? You left without us. I haven't settled the score with you yet. Let's divorce." I repeated it again firmly. "It was you who took the initiative to pursue me. Now that you're married, you want a divorce. Are you kidding?" Sophia was furious. "If you want a divorce, you have to wait until we come back to talk about it. We've been together for so long. I know exactly what she's saying. It's never because she can't bear to part with me. She's not angry for any other reason. It's because I'm the one who filed for divorce." She felt she lost face. That's why she got emotional. I didn't wait for her to continue talking. I hung up. Early the next morning, they came back. I could hear Sophia and Emily's movements in the room as they dropped things and shouting, "William, where are you? Where were you?" I pushed open the door to the guest bedroom. I looked at her with no expression on my face. "You've got a lot of nerve. How dare you leave us alone? Come back first by yourself." She didn't hesitate to hit at me. "I see you like it when I come back first." I was on guard. I grabbed her wrist. "You, HMPH, so what? It's not because you're too frugal. You worked so hard to save up to take us out. It's not as much as Christopher's treating us to a meal. I'm taking Emily out to see the world. What's wrong with that?" She poked me hard in the chest. "Says, you don't think about it. You have no ability and no money. It's your good fortune to be with you in your past life. It's okay if I come back. Why don't you go make us breakfast? That's right, Emily's tuition. Are you ready?" The doorbell rang. Sophia thought it was me ordering takeout. She glanced at me, walked over to open the door. The man at the door said, "Hello, is this Mr. Williams' house? I'm Mr. Williams' divorce lawyer. I have prepared the divorce papers." Sophia turns her head in surprise, staring at me. Asked, "Are you serious?" "Yes, I really want to. I really want to divorce you. I don't want to wait a second longer." I looked her in the eye seriously. She seemed offended. Her face first turned red, then turned white, then it went back to red. "I'm telling you plainly, William, don't be a jerk. Even if you want a divorce, I'm the one who asked for it first, not you. You understand? I can't stand you anymore. You used to be decent. Now you're just like a middle-aged man. You're old and rustic and poor." She grabbed the divorce agreement in the lawyer's hand. She quickly signed her name, then viciously threw the document at me. Loudly said, "Leave you. Emily and I will have a better life." Emily had been watching from the side. That's when she suddenly threw her pencil case at me. The tin box with the Disney princesses on it crashed right into the kitty cat Band-Aid I hadn't yet ripped off. Bright red blood flowed out again. I casually wiped it away. The blood was like the little fatherly love I had left for Emily. It instantly disappeared without a trace. "Go away. I don't recognize you as my father. After you leave, my mom can stay with Uncle Christopher. He'll buy me lots of good food and nice clothes." Emily made an exaggerated face at me. I didn't say a word. Bent down and picked up the divorce papers. Looked at Emily and Sophia. Coldly smiled. "I am to you guys really disappointed. Think of it as the price you pay for your past youthful impulsiveness and looking at the wrong people." I took one last deep look at Sophia and Emily. Not hurting women and children is my most basic principle. I left the home that I had worked so hard for 10 years. My heart was at a loss, not knowing where to go. I walked into a bar, drunk. When I woke up the next day, I found myself lying in a police station. The first person I saw. Surprisingly, it was the person I hadn't seen for almost 10 years. Brother. The man in front of me had a serious expression. He didn't say a word. He didn't look at me either. I nervously twisted my fingers. After 10 minutes, the man next to me couldn't watch anymore. Laughing, he rounded off the conversation. "Liam, didn't you say this is your own brother? What can't brothers say to each other? Why do you look like you're lecturing us?" Right. When we brought him back from the bar that day, we were all worried sick. He still pretended to be fine. "That's funny. Ha ha ha." Liam finally looked at me. Not much expression on his face. Says, "Wake up. I thought you were drunk in front of the bar. You were so determined when you left home. I thought you were doing so well out there." Liam is a person. He's very direct in what he says, but his heart is actually very soft. I insisted on being with Sophia. My family didn't agree. Not only did they freeze my funds, they also cut off our relationship, but I was determined. No matter how hard it was, I refused to compromise. My brother secretly put money in my card. I was able to send Sophia to give birth. At that time, he was in trouble with his family over his job as a cop. Looking back now, I used my own brother's hard-earned money. I raised someone else's daughter. I was so stupid. I followed Liam back home. It seems his efforts weren't in vain. His relationship with his family is obviously much better. As soon as that noblewoman with half-white hair saw me, she couldn't stop her tears. "You bastard. What a heartless man. It took so long to think of going home." She gently patted me. I felt a warm current welling up in my heart. I whispered, "Dad, Mom, my son is unfilial." My dad stood behind my mom, hummed softly. He said, "Now that you're back, don't hang out with those unsavory people outside anymore." My family's company was originally intended for me and my brother to inherit together. Didn't expect. My brother was determined to become a cop, and I fell out with my family for a woman they didn't approve of. I fell out with my family. As a result, my dad is still holding up the company to this day. Didn't manage to retire. I want to repay my brother for taking care of me before. I'm going to treat his whole family to a meal, but he's been busy with a case lately. He can't spare the time. He asked me to get in touch with his son first. When he got married, I was no longer at home, so I decided to take my little nephew Ethan to an amusement park. He saw me for the first time, but wasn't scared at all. He graciously shouted, "Hello, Uncle." That cheerful and sunny character made us get acquainted quickly. Ethan is young but bold. He especially likes to play exciting programs. I played with him for a while. He couldn't hold on any longer. He patted my shoulder like a small adult. He looked at me with concern. "Uncle, if you don't feel well, you don't have to go with me. I can do it myself. Dad says I'm already a little man." Ethan is so understanding, so considerate. I can't help comparing him to Emily. I've tried my best to teach Emily, but she's become very selfish. If she doesn't get her way, she rolls on the floor. She would roll on the floor, crying and screaming. I sighed, decided to take a break first. Let Ethan play some milder games. After all, he's still small. going to play roller coaster jumpers and other exciting items by himself. I really don't feel at ease. He understood and chose a water gun game. Just sit on the seat and spray water at others. But the game is not yet over. I heard a clamor coming from the other side of the venue. Why are you kids talking nonsense? You've learned to lie at such a young age. At this time, I heard a familiar shout. Then, Ethan said in a calm tone, "Sister waitress." It was this sister who pulled me. That's why I accidentally fell down. I hurriedly stood up. Emily, who hadn't seen her for a few days, pointed at Ethan and shouted, I didn't. He was the one who disobeyed my command to shoot the guy. I'm the one who pulled him. It wasn't my fault." I turned my head to Ethan. He's got a bloody mark knocked into his forehead. I rushed over to him, pulled him to me, asked, "What happened? How did you get hurt?" He told me what happened in detail. Turns out he didn't think it was polite to attack a girl younger than himself with a water pistol, so he only attacked boys. But Emily, who was in his group, insisted that he attack a little girl. He didn't want to. She pushed him out of his seat. I was just about to speak. Sophia suddenly shouted, "William, who is this person? Have you been hiding someone else from me for a long time? I wondered why you suddenly dared to ask for a divorce. It turns out that you already have a new lover." Emily heard, immediately opened her mouth and cried, "You are so bad. You always help others to bully me. I don't want a father like you." The staff and other tourists next to her heard it, started whispering. He looked at me a bit strange. Little Ethan took my hand. Shaking his head at Emily, he said, "My dad is a police officer," he told me. "A kid who lies is not a good kid. Will be taken to jail. You're not really Uncle William's kid." I patted his head gently, then walked over to Emily, lifted the back of her collar, pushed her in front of Ethan. "I'll say it again. I am not your father. Also, you will apologize to Ethan." Emily froze for a second. She didn't think that I, who was usually so nice to her, would make her apologize to someone else. She pouted, turned her head to the side. Sophia turned pale, hummed softly, "Kids fooling around. What's there to apologize for?" I turned toward Sophia and slapped her. Shouted, "Apologize." Emily sat on her butt in shock. I glared at them angrily. "Don't make me repeat myself." Emily then sobbed and said she was sorry. The story reached my dad's ears. He felt that I was completely done with the past. It didn't take long. He let me manage the branch as an exercise. On this day, the general manager of the company, in order to please me, he insisted on giving me a reception. I wasn't used to this kind of occasion. I let him lead the way. I followed behind slowly, while walking and looking. I accidentally bumped into someone who was on the phone. I hurriedly apologized. Taking a closer look, it turned out to be an acquaintance. It was Christopher. He was a bit puzzled at first, but when he saw me, his expression immediately became arrogant, as if he thought I was a waiter or something. "Isn't that Emily's dad? What's he doing here as a waiter after his divorce? Do you want to work for me? I can at least give you a good life. It won't be hard to find another partner like Sophia." Seeing me ignoring him, his face sank, pressed the cigarette butt on my shirt. I slapped his hand away, stared at him coldly. "I'll send you the invoice for the clothes along with my bank card number. Remember to compensate." He laughed his ass off. "You need an invoice for clothes that cost a few $dozen. It's too much trouble." He took out a $50 bill from his pocket and threw it to me. "I'll compensate you now." I stepped right over that money. I ignored him, entered the private room. The general manager introduced me to several shareholders and directors with a pleasing face. I was not interested in this kind of hypocritical occasion, casually dealt with a couple of sentences and stopped talking. Soon, a scolding sound came from outside. "I told you to send it earlier. What are you doing? Why didn't you wear the clothes I told you to wear?" "What? I don't want to wear it. You have a choice." "Forget it. Let's call it a day. I won't bother with you." The words just fell. There was a knock at the door. Christopher led Sophia and Emily to stand at the door. Christopher and Sophia were still dressed appropriately, but it was already late fall. Instead, they dressed Emily in a strapless, backless mini. "Excuse me, bosses, I'm late." He made a toast to the general manager. "The GM says he's not the star of the show." Christopher turns to a few others. They all shook their heads to say they wouldn't take his drink. As soon as he saw me, he said, "William, how do you qualify to sit here?" The GM passed a look. He reminded me, "This is our general manager, William. Please watch what you say." Christopher's eyes widened in surprise. Disbelief was written all over his face. Sophia was the same, showing the same expression. As soon as Emily saw me, immediately frowned, disdainfully said, "What, William General? Ah, don't be fooled by him. He's just a poor man with nothing to lose." "Why are you here?" she shouted angrily, casually grabbed the egg cake in front of her and threw it at me. I got another ugly yellow stain on my shirt. The table was too late to stop it. One could only look down and pretend not to see it. The general manager slammed the table, shouted, "Christopher, I was going to give you a good opportunity to know the chairman. Look at what kind of person you brought with you. How is this possible? Absolutely impossible." Christopher shouted. At that moment, one of the shareholders called the security guard. The security guard said, "Please leave. Bring them back when the next candidate is suitable." Sophia came back to her senses, hurriedly pushed Emily in front of me, said, "William, I was wrong. Emily is still so small. Please forgive us." "Emily, hurry up and apologize to your father." Several silent shareholders were shocked to hear this. They were shocked. They all looked at Christopher. There were some inscrutable meanings in his eyes. Emily didn't understand what her mom was doing. She said with dissatisfaction, "Mom, what are you doing? Look at that man, he's dirty and torn. There's a hole in his shirt. How can he be my dad?" I looked down at my wretched appearance. I laughed. "That's right, I'm not Emily's dad. Isn't her dad Christopher?" I pulled out the picture I had saved on my phone. It was a chat between Sophia and Christopher. I walked over to Christopher, showed him the information about this dress I was wearing, $99,999. "Are you transferring the money now? Or do I take you to the police station and sit down?" Christopher shook off my hand. "Don't talk nonsense here. How can a dress be so expensive? And I just burned a small hole, and your daughter threw vegetable soup all over you." He immediately changed his name to Emily. Sophia's face instantly turned pale. "How did you know?" "Wait a minute, I lied to him. Emily is not his child at all. We can take her for a paternity test." She rushed over and grabbed my hand, anxiously squeezed out a few tears, said, "It doesn't matter who she is. It's not mine anyway. I've already found out about those dishonorable things you used to do. Do you want to call up the video of the hotel? Let you see yourself at that time." I grabbed her face, push it to the side. "Take a closer look. You can still find the new wrinkles on her face." Christopher suddenly realized something, slapped Sophia angrily, shouted, "Sophia, how dare you lie to me?" He turned his head, smiled at me. "William General, I didn't recognize you in the past. You are very generous. Don't be so familiar with me." Christopher's eyes lit up. He seemed to have an idea. He smiled and said to Chief William, "Mr. William, I have a good business opportunity here. Are you interested in working with me? Give me a chance. We don't need to delay the chance to make a lot of money for one person." I turned my head away in disgust. "Say, your money. I don't feel clean later." He ignored Sophia's yelling and Emily, who seemed to sense something. Straight away, he left that noisy place. When I got home, I asked Christopher, the general manager, "Is there something unseemly about the company and those executives?" But he only dealt with me vaguely. That's when it occurred to me. Maybe because Dad is getting older, the control over the shareholders and the executives is not as strong as before. There are quite a few problems in the company. Need me to solve them one by one. On my brother's birthday, I went to his flat to look for him after work. I didn't see anyone. I just wanted to leave. I saw a familiar figure running in through the door crying. After she saw me, cried even harder, shouting, "Dad, Dad, come and save me." Emily was crying very hard. I just stood still and didn't move. When she used to cry like this, I would have run over and hugged her. But now, my feelings for her have been consumed by herself. "Christopher, Dad is a bad person. Daddy, I want you to come home." She clung to my legs and cried. I gently pushed her away with my hand. At this time, a few policemen heard the sound and rushed over, asked me with their eyes about the situation. I didn't recognize her. Neither is her father. "Since you guys are here, then I'll leave it to you guys." Having said that, I turned around and wanted to leave the police station. But she clung to my legs, not letting me go. "Dad, don't go, don't leave me alone. Papa." Christopher made a move on me. I was in a slightly relaxed mood. Suddenly, I remembered the day Emily pressed me into the sea. She almost suffocated me, and her vicious words about wanting me dead. A chill bubbled up from the bottom of my heart. I couldn't help but shiver. I handed her over to the policeman, then looked at her, slowly said, "Don't call me Dad from now on. I'm not your dad." I didn't see them again for a long time. I heard that shortly after I left that day. Sophia came to pick her up. They briefly educated Sophia, let them go. I didn't expect to see Sophia again. Seeing Sophia again was actually in the computer of the major shareholder of the head office. I took advantage of his business trip. Under the pretext of needing the company's previous information, personally went to his office to check his USB flash drive. I did not expect. There are at least hundreds of videos and photos of women stored unreservedly inside. And there were people of all ages. He frowned, quietly wrote down the evidence. A few days later, Sophia somehow found out where I live now. He waited for me in front of the neighborhood for days. Finally saw me. As soon as he saw me, he immediately knelt down. He said, "William, I'm sorry. Please help me. Save Emily. Christopher was too much. He forced me to do those things." He took Emily to who knows where. Sophia's body still shows clear signs of beatings. Her original spirited appearance had become noticeably older. "Christopher did this kind of thing. It's really too much." Hearing those words, her eyes immediately lit up. "But what do you and Emily have to do with me now? If you have evidence, you should go to the police station to report the case, instead of coming here to cry with me. But you loved Emily so much before. Even if you don't care about me, you should care about her. She's your daughter." I was about to get in the car. I heard that, stopped in my tracks, turned my head to look at her. I always thought that Emily's current character was the result of my poor education, but after going to the island I realized. Some people are born with bad character. Sophia realized there was no hope, paralyzed on the floor, and cried bitterly. I still told my brother about it. It wasn't for anything else. It's just that I want him to get more credit. I understand now. Only people who are sincere to me, only those who deserve my sincere treatment. It didn't take long. The criminal investigation team headed by my brother successfully solved a big case. The most heartbreaking thing is, there were many little girls among the victims. I think of those 2 times Emily wore inappropriate clothes. Maybe there was already a problem then, but she listened to them too much. If Emily was just a little bit nicer to me, I wouldn't have left her alone. But that's not what happened. Maybe that's the bad side of human nature. Sophia was arrested for criminal activity. She came to see me that day. Emily had been beaten up too much. She couldn't take it anymore. She seemed to have suffered some kind of shock. Her whole body became abnormal. She was sent to an orphanage. I went to see her once, but she got very agitated when she saw me, muttering about drowning us all. I shook my head. Let her be. Christopher escaped when he got the news in advance, but was spotted and caught by the alert crowd. Since the case involved girls, everyone was extremely angry about the incident. Without calling the police, they tied him to a tree, which eventually led to his death. The police department received a surrender from an almost 100-year-old anti-American veteran. They also felt helpless. By handling this case, I cleaned up the corrupt elements within the company. By the way, they privately made dishonorable deals with Christopher, misappropriated the company's funds, damaging the company's reputation. Now the company has a new look. My dad finally felt comfortable leaving the company in my hands. He and my mom signed up for a tour. We went to enjoy life all over the world. On the day I officially became chairman, my brother brought the whole family to celebrate me. Although he and his sister-in-law are often separated due to work, but the relationship has always been good. The little niece is also particularly well-behaved, very polite. We all have a future to look forward to.